All right, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of Thursday, August 1st, 2024. If we can start with roll call.
Chair Dennison.
Here.
Vice Chair Simcock.
Here.
Commissioners Brennan.
Here.
Moran. And you.
Yep.
Chair, you have a quorum to conduct business.
Thank you. I will look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
I second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Next up is the approval of minutes. I will look for a motion to approve the minutes with the recommended edits.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Zipping right along to the council liaison report. I see Mayor Pro Tem Parkhurst here to deliver this.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. I am here on behalf of Councilmember Lowe. We have a number of things since the last meeting. As Councilmember Lowe mentioned at your last meeting, we did have the first reading of Ordinance 1471 on photography and filming TUPs. Senior Planner Wolf did such a great job that there were no questions, and it was adopted for first reading and will go to second reading at our first meeting, which will be in September. We also had a presentation and a request from the Playhouse to be named a historical landmark, and that was adopted. We updated our user fees. So we did, the city did a detailed user fee study. This is the first time in more than 10 years that we've looked at all of the fees that we've had. So a lot of the planning fees were reviewed and updated. And as you may be aware, all of those fees have to be based on the cost to do them. So it's not like a revenue source that we can generate. It's based on the amount of time it takes to do it and the amount of effort. And so a thorough process was gone through with the help of Wildan, and that was adopted by council. Three more things. We are moving forward with fire safe councils. So we're going to be adopting fire safe councils, and there's a corollary to that, and I'm blanking. I didn't jot it down here. That will help us with making the homes, particularly in the canyon, more fire resilient, opening up the way for grants and opportunities for funding for that area, and also may be able to help with getting insurance, as we all know that's getting more difficult, especially in those areas north of Grandview that are in the very high fire severity zone. The last two things, there's an election coming up. You may have been aware of that. And there are two council positions that are up for running. And if anyone's interested in running for council, you have to file your paperwork by August 9th. And then finally, there is a measure on the ballot to consider a parcel tax. It's about $460 per residential parcel, and I think up to $600 for commercial. And that parcel tax would be for completely for salaries for police and then fire department. So those are things that have been on discussion there, and thank you for the time.
Thank you. Next up is community input. At this time, any person may address the Planning Commission concerning an item that is not on the agenda. The Commission welcomes your attendance and participation. When addressing the Commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting. Hearing none, we will move into our public hearing, but first we'll start with a disclosure of site visits and ex parte contact.
I drive by this almost daily, so I've seen it many times.
I did visit 647 West Sierra Madre Boulevard, and I did have an interaction with the homeowner.
Drove by, no interaction.
I did stop by today. I did have an interaction, but didn't hear about anything that wasn't already on the report. All right, so now we will move into a public hearing, a certificate of appropriateness, CA 24-02, a request for the exterior alteration of an existing designated historical landmark. Does city staff have a presentation?
Chair, yes, our senior planner Wolf will deliver the presentation.
Great.
Thank you and good evening, Commission. Tonight, the Planning Commission will be reviewing an application for a certificate of appropriateness for a project located at 647 West Sierra Madre Boulevard. This is a request for the designated landmark known as the Caldwell Fairbank House. And it was built in 1907. The request for the certificate includes the rehabilitation of 2 masonry fireplaces and corresponding chimney, and the second is for the replacement of all roofing on the house and the detached garage. The property is located along the north side of West Sierra Madre Boulevard between Michelinda and Sunnyside Avenues, within the residential high-density land use designation and within the R313 zone, being for multifamily development for up to 13 dwelling units per acre. It is also within the residential entrepreneur overlay. The land area is approximately half an acre, and it is surrounded almost on all sides by multifamily development, which came in between 60s and 70s. The property gained some national attention when an article was published in the March 1908 issue of the Craftsman magazine. It was authored by Gustav Stickley, who was an arts and crafts furniture designer. The article identifies the architect as Louis B. Easton, who took on an already designed project with its foundations already completed and substantially modified the budget with a budget of only $6,000 at the time, which today translates to about $200,000, still a low rough estimation. In this image, it takes from page 683 of the Craftsman magazine, and it is enlarged to show the photographic evidence of the original chimney, which you see projecting in height above the roof over the west wing. The same article also includes the photos of the interior spaces, which include the fireplace facing the living room on the left, which you can see kind of small there, and within the den on the center image there. After its spotlight in the Craftsman magazine, the property saw little activity until the Sierra Madre earthquake in 1991. The earthquake caused $12.5 million in damage citywide, significantly damaging the home's chimney and fireplaces. Original materials from the chimney and fireplace were carefully removed and stored. Following the Northridge earthquake, the prior owner faced costly decision to repair or redevelop a dilapidated building. The songsters, returning locals and newly admitted members of Pasadena heritage, saw an opportunity to preserve the property. They purchased it, narrowly saving it from demolition. The songsters meticulously removed and mapped the fireplace bricks for restoration. They restored the original landscape design, replanting 14 Valencia orange trees in the front yard, and the home gained attention again in 2011 in issue 72 of the American Bungalow magazine. The back patio was also restored in 2012. So in issue 72 of American Bungalow magazine, the cover features a home nestled in the landscape with the mountains in the backdrop. The enlarged image in the featured article reveals that the home is a large 2 3/4 story building. In his article, Robert Winter tells the songster story of how they saved the property from near demolition. He also shares the story of Lillian Caldwell, her husband James E. Fairbank, and their architect Louis B. Easton, who was an amateur at the time. Despite Easton's inexperience, the home was built with expert craftsmanship. As Donald Songster notes, the home withstood the test of time, with original doors and hardware still functioning perfectly after 2 major earthquakes. The rehabilitation and reconstruction of the fireplace and corresponding chimney occurs about the west wing of the house. An enlarged view of the fireplace shows that there are 2 fireboxes sharing one flue and chimney. For this presentation, I've labeled Firebox A as the one that faces the main entry living room, and Firebox B as the one that faces the den in the west wing. So on the site conditions, the first image revealed here is facing the front of the property and looking down the pathway toward the entrance. The second one here is down toward the driveway facing the garage. And this image is of the rear patio that had been recently rehabilitated. And at this point, note that the roof surfaces are hardly visible. The east and west wings of the houses are angled northward in such a way to minimize their appearance from the front. Also, much of the foliage obstructs the view of the roof surfaces, softening the edges of the house and framing the famous front gable. Regarding the chimney, the first image here is at the west wing looking north, and the second image here, the same angle, the same chimney, west wing, looking east and slightly south from the driveway. The chimney currently meets the roof eave. That portion which projected above the roof surface was carefully removed after it was damaged in the 1991 Sierra Madre earthquake. The brick fireplaces are pictured here. Due to the damage caused by the 1991 earthquake, bricks on both fireplaces were removed after being cataloged and mapped for placement. And you can see fireplace B, the one that faces the den, you can see where it has been marked for, that's kind of where it's mapped and cataloged. And you can see also over time how it had been removed. So reconstruction of the chimney and the fireplaces involves the removal of the remaining portion of the stone chimney so that 4 4x4 steel posts may be incorporated and welded with rebar for the full length of the chimney to be reconstructed. Reconstruction of the chimney would bring it to a total height of 22 feet and 3 inches measured from grade. And at this point, I want to point out that the staff report did include a typographic error where it says 25 feet and 3 inches. That is a typographic error. On plan, it shows 22 feet, 3 inches. This would also incorporate a 4-inch layer of sliced stone embedded within poured concrete. The roof material proposed with a composition shingle material, which is a fiberglass matte base, asphalt coating embedded within ceramic coated mineral granules. This is a UL listed Class A fire resistant material. The material comes in several color options. Those shown on the slide are available for this area, and the applicant has selected the Moire Black. Work to the roof also incorporates modern structural improvements, replacing the spaced cedar plank sheathing with solid sheathing. For the evaluation of appropriateness, Sapphos Environmental has conducted a design review and provided the city with a memorandum for the record, providing its findings for consistency with the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, the guidelines for rehabilitation. The QR code on screen here provides the website for the National Park Service, specifically the webpage that lists the 10 standards for rehabilitation. The proposed project was evaluated for each standard and found to be consistent with all, and particularly those which were applicable were standards 1, 2, and 5, which you see on screen here. And I'll spare the commission the time reading out all of those findings for you. Should they wish, I can repeat those findings. For regulatory requirements, we have the Sierra Madre Municipal Code, and we also have the California Environmental Quality Act. In Sierra Madre, all permits for alteration, restoration, rehabilitation, remodeling, addition, change of use, demolition, or relocation of historic landmarks which alter the exterior appearance as seen from the public view shall require a certificate of appropriateness from the Commission. In the California Environmental Quality Act, it may not apply to classes of projects that designated pursuant to CEQA guidelines, which include a list of classes of projects that have been determined not to be significant. There is the regulation for certificates of appropriateness, and to approve and issue one, the Commission must make the following findings. The first, that the work has no effect to the integrity of significant architectural features and character or value of the historic landmark. And the second involves for new improvements that they have no adverse effect on and are not incompatible with the existing use or exterior appearance. So in this case, the second of those two findings is really inapplicable here. We're not talking about new improvements. We're talking about rehabilitation and reconstruction of historic elements. So the first finding takes effect. And we find that in the scope of work, it includes that reconstruction of the chimney and fireplaces and the repair of the 3 roof structures, the 2 being on the main house and the third being on the detached garage. The materials for the roof are sympathetic to the original craftsman style, being a material appropriate as a replacement for otherwise combustible materials that are in kind with craftsman period significance. And then also that the work has been reviewed and evaluated by a qualified architectural historian and to be in compliance with the Secretary of the Interior Standards for the Treatment of Historic Properties with the rehabilitation guidelines. So going back to the categorical exemption, Class 31, this is for historical resource restoration and rehabilitation. And because it is limited to the restoration of a historical resource in a manner consistent with the Secretary of Interior Standards. So going back to the CEQA and the project's potential exception from a Class 31 categorical exemption, should the Commission meet the findings for approval of a certificate of appropriateness, then the exception will not apply because the project will not cause a substantial adverse change to the significance of its historical resource. Therefore, the exemption can apply. The project does also qualify for a Class 1 categorical exemption, which is for existing facilities, because it does involve the exterior alteration to an existing facility and the restoration or rehabilitation of a deteriorated or damaged structure to meet current standards for public health and safety. So tonight, the Planning Commission has the option to approve the application and issue a certificate of appropriateness pursuant to Resolution 24-13. They may approve that application with modifications. They may deny the application, identifying those findings that the Commission cannot make for approval, and direct staff to prepare a resolution for denial, or continue the public hearing and provide direction to staff and the applicant. The recommendation from staff is for the Planning Commission to approve the application and issue a certificate of appropriateness pursuant to Planning Commission Resolution 24-13. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant and his team are here to answer any of your questions as well.
So I didn't track fully on the CEQA slide versus the certificate of appropriateness. It sounded like what you were saying is if we didn't give it a certificate of appropriateness, that the CEQA exception would apply?
The CEQA exception from an exemption of an environmental review would apply. Therefore, we would have to do an environmental study to ensure that it does not have an environmental impact.
Please.
So these are 2 separate approvals. Every single land use approval has to have its CEQA approval. And then per our municipal code, it has to have this certificate of appropriateness. So if both of them aren't approved, the project doesn't get approved.
Okay.
If the CEQA exemption isn't found, then it's going to go back and we have to do a full EIR potentially.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
No questions.
No.
All right. Thank you. We'll invite the applicant up to make a presentation only if they wish to, not required.
Well, I'd like to introduce myself. And thank you for meeting one item on the agenda.
We'll give you a second to get up there so that we can get that, hear your important words on the record.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to thank you for coming out since this is the only item on the agenda. And I really appreciate that. I would like to introduce the people who have accompanied me here, members of the team. There's Long Tang, the engineer on the project, Dave Peach, the mason for the masonry work, and Chris Noble of Noble Roofing for doing contractor for the roof, and also my friend Richard Trader, longtime resident of Sierra Madre, and is also familiar with the house. And then all the way from Castle Rock, Colorado. Colorado is my son, Peter, sitting in the front there. So I've made a few friends, and I have a lot of support this evening. So I was a newlywed of only 24 years when I moved into that house. Now my wife and I have celebrated our 54th anniversary. The reason I'm coming before the commission tonight is these are two big items, you know, the masonry and the roof. And the roof has held up over these years until recently, and now it's failing. And in order to, you know, protect this historical asset for Sierra Madre, there's a certain kind of urgency. I need approval so I can move forward and put the new roof on, and so that there isn't any, you know, damage to the structure. It's beyond being delayed any further. There's an urgency about it, and and part of the chimney and the masonry aspect of it. I've had several runs of it towards this project over the years. The craftsmen have either retired or passed away, but now I've discovered a new craftsman, and who's fully capable of doing this work. And so, in order for my wife and I to enjoy the, fully enjoy the remainder of our life in Sierra Madre, we'd like to reconstruct the fireplace and the chimney. And the chimney is something that is fully visible from the public right away, and is an important feature of the house. These houses were built with river rock, like mine isn't the only one, the foundation and the chimney. And I would like to, restore that, chimney, so the house, represents what it looked like in the photograph of the 1907 photograph. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Okay?
Any questions for the applicant?
No.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will take public comment from anyone who wishes to comment on this specific agendized item. The commission welcomes your attendance and participation, and when addressing the commission, please begin by providing your name and address for the record. Please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes to assure an orderly and timely meeting.
My name is Richard Trader, and I'm bringing my paper. I won't scare anybody because I used to give many speeches here for try to keep it short. Both Mr. Songster and myself spent numerous hours in here, going over and reviewing, encouraging, supporting preservation of historic resources here in Sierra Madre. As we were both former commissioners, so we appreciate and appreciate the effort, as I'm sure you've gathered. I've been personally involved, as Mr. Songster said, in reviewing the meticulous and dedicated manner which both he and Mrs. Songster have been preserving their home over these past years. And as he said, it's kind of critical now. Really can't delay any further, the work that needs to be done to preserve the house for the future. It's been my pleasure to research the history of the house, just a little bit more on the history of the house and the original owners. I went back to Illinois, where the original owners were from, about 20 years ago, and researched extensively the Mrs. Caldwell, her daughter Lillian Green, and her husband Dr. Fairbank. And the interesting part about them all was the Green family was involved with the Abraham Lincoln's family, which was just a short distance away from Tallulah, Illinois, across some fields where New Salem was located. So it was interesting learning about all that connection and then coming back here to when the house was built, when they came here in the 1906 and 1907 to prepare to find a place to build their house. They located this property in Sierra Madre, and the way that they contacted Louis B. Easton then to design and construct the house was interesting because Louis B. Easton's wife was the daughter of Elbert Hubbard, who was another pillar of the arts and crafts movement. So, Stickley published the Craftsman magazine, and Elbert Hubbard, was the Roy Croft, workshop person, who died on Lusitania. So anyway, all this stuff had happened. It was interesting how it all came together. So that particular block of Central, later Sierra Madre Boulevard, was one of the most important craftsman neighborhoods of, large craftsman homes. And the year around when Sierra Madre was incorporated, when Pacific Electric came to town. So that was kind of the gateway and, showing what Sierra Madre was to the world as everyone was coming in the great hiking area to go hiking in town. So on display on the north side of the street was this house, and then subsequently in 1908, the Lawless house built by Green and Green was on the corner, which still exists encapsulated inside the apartment building that's there, which you probably heard about, and they've kind of tried to make a trellis and some things and the retaining wall is still out there from the Green and Green house. So all along that north side were beautiful craftsman homes that were, like I said, just a symbol of how amazing the neighborhood could be and the development of the town. So this particular house, though, is a sole survivor that remains intact. I just wanted, in conclusion, just to encourage you to approve the certificate of appropriateness to help preserve this for posterity. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Traeger. Anyone else? All right, we will bring it back to the commission for deliberation. Who'd like to start?
I'll start. Yeah, I thank you for keeping this house. We see what's happened to the ones that used to be there, along neighbors. So thank you for keeping this one. It's a great house. Anything I can do to help restore it, I will do. So I am fully in favor of approving this.
No, I feel the same way. I think it's a project of passion. I mean, you've lived there, and thank you for all the efforts that you put into it. The team as well. I think it's met all the requirements, and I'm here to support it.
Yeah, I'm definitely in support of the project, and not just the approach to the restoration, but the fact that we've got materials on site that have been retained and cataloged is a terrific bonus, I think, just to the restoration work. So I'm excited for the homeowners to see the chimney and the roof line come back. So it's very exciting and very supportive of the rehabilitation.
Yeah, I'd like to first thank the city staff. Another excellent presentation. Thank you, Senior Planner Wolf. I always had that orange grove out front, and I cannot imagine what it looked like without that, because to me, that's just part of what makes the house. And it just goes to the attention to detail that you've spent and invested in this house. And the findings couldn't write themselves better for this. So I'm thrilled with the efforts you've put in the restoration and thankful for it. So thank you very much. I'll look for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve certificate of appropriateness 2402 as is.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Planning Commission reports. Any planning commissioners have anything to report?
I don't have anything.
I do not.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Next up is Planning and Community Preservation Department reports. Planning Manager Lynn.
Chair Dennison, we do not have any application that's ready for the Planning Commission public hearing for the next meeting. So we're looking to cancel the next meeting and resume on September 5th.
All right, thank you. With that then, if there's no more business from anybody, then I will adjourn this meeting to our next regularly scheduled meeting of September 5th. Thank you.